Lila Rose is an internationally acclaimed speaker and pro-life activist, adventurer, warrior. 15. At 15 years of age, she founded Live Action, a news media nonprofit which was dedicated to inspiring people to take action and end abortion and build a culture of life. 15, half her life ago, she started this. Her extraordinary group of young men and women utilized investigative journalism to expose the abortion industry's threats against the vulnerable and the defenseless, and I'm sure you have seen them. Ms. Rose leads the charge in these undercover investigations into America's most notorious abortion facilities, shining a light on the greatest human rights abuse of our time through national media campaigns. Live Action runs stealth education programs targeted at changing hearts and minds about abortion. Live Action is the largest pro-life social media platform on the web. I know. I have sat for the last half hour and watched her work, sitting here, taking the message in North Florida and using it to inspire people around the world with more than 1 million Facebook fans and over 58,000 followers on Twitter. Her work has been featured on every major news outlet and is regularly on Fox News. She writes for USA Today, First Things, Politico, and other publications. The list goes on and on and on. And we are incredibly blessed to have this beautiful, vivacious, energetic young woman who is out there leading the charge against something so insidious that it needs all of our help. So please, a warm North Florida welcome to Ms. Lila Rose.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brian. That was very kind. And Brian is on Twitter. We've been tweeting at the table over there. If you want to follow either of us, anyone who's on social media right now. But thank you so much to Nancy and the president of the board, Jim, and the rest of the board. That beautiful testimony from Kelly, how inspiring. And just thank you to all of you for being here tonight, for being here in spirit, being here with your wallet, being here with your heart, to support not just another ministry, not just another charity or good cause, but to support the cause that I believe is the defining cause of our day. And that's the cause of how we choose to treat the littlest one, how we choose to treat the weakest one. So thank you so much for your beautiful, beautiful work here in Jacksonville. Really an honor to be with you. I'm a California girl, so I flew in from California yesterday. I actually hopped from Orlando because we missed a flight delay. So we ended up driving in the middle of the night with my friend Trish and I to Jacksonville. So I saw Orlando at night and Jacksonville in the sun, so I definitely like Jacksonville better. Very beautiful, enjoyed the day, got to go to Mass at Immaculate Conception with Father. Just a wonderful town and so much warmth and so much joy permeating from a lot of the folks that I've gotten to meet. But my journey, and I want to share with you today a little bit about the work that I get to be involved in, a little bit of my story, and really about this great crossroads that our nation is at. And it's that crossroads of, do we choose life or death as a nation? America, the leading country in the world, the greatest country in the world, I believe, this bastion of liberty, this bastion of human rights. And yet, at the core, at the foundation of our law, we have this great injustice where we don't see that first human right, which is life for the littlest one, for the weakest one, the child in the womb. A few years ago, I was in Los Angeles, and I spent several years there. I was a student at UCLA. Any Bruins in the room? No? Okay. Go Bruins, go Bruins. That's my school. I was in UCLA, and anyways, I was speaking at a church in the downtown part, or a beautiful part of LA. It was actually in Beverly Hills, so it was a very fancy neighborhood, very fancy parish. And I'm in the parish hall giving this pro-life talk. And in the middle of my talk, this very tall, thin, very angry-looking woman walks in with very long blonde hair. She's standing in the back of the room, and her arms are crossed against her chest, and she's kind of staring at me, just kind of looking at me with this glare on her face. And I remember thinking, maybe she had a bad day in LA traffic, what's going on? The speaker does see what people look like in the audience, and they're kind of like, what's going on? And after my talk, she came up to me, and she shook my hand, and she introduced herself as a member of the Planned Parenthood Federation of America's National Board. And I said, oh, hello. Bless your heart. No, that's what they say in the South, right? I said, hello, how are you doing? It's so nice to see you here at church. You should come more often. It's open on Sundays and confessions at noon. No, I didn't say that. I just said, hello, so nice to meet you. How are you doing? And she said, young lady, I saw a flyer in the neighborhood that you would be here talking, and I thought that I had to come and give you some advice as a mom. And I found that so ironic immediately that, first of all, Planned Parenthood, and I was at the time and continue had been investigating facilities across the country, that she was there to give me advice. And she said, as a mom, when she was advocating, and she explained in a few moments that she had started her work at Planned Parenthood in her 20s, she was now in her 50s, when she was advocating for the very violence that denies mothers their motherhood. And so I asked her, okay, well, what would that advice be? What do you have to say? And she said, young lady, in the media and in your speeches, you have to stop saying the word pro-abortion. Say pro-choice. And I'm thinking, she came all the way here to tell me this. I said, so why? I said, why? What's so wrong with being for abortion? Don't you support abortion? Don't you think that that's a fine thing to do? And she said, well, it's just a very offensive term, okay? Pro-abortion, you have to say pro-choice, it's more accurate. And I said, well, why? Why is being for abortion, why is the term pro-abortion so offensive? What is abortion offensive? What's offensive about it? And she said, well, it's just a very difficult decision. Abortion is difficult for women, so don't say for it because it's a difficult decision for women. And I said, why? Why is abortion so difficult for women? What makes abortion so difficult? Isn't this, you do it over 320,000 times a year at your facilities. Why so difficult for women? We ran around in circles, and she kept expressing how she was uncomfortable. She used the word uncomfortable, offensive, difficult, and a small group of people started gathering around, and it was like cat fight at the church between Planned Parenthood and pro-life. We were very, very civil with one another. But quickly I realized that this board member of the Planned Parenthood Federation of America would not be able to answer my question. What's so difficult? What's so offensive? What's so uncomfortable with abortion? Because if she did, she would be looking head on her life's work contradiction. That while she thought and while she said she was advocating for women and for the rights of women and for reproductive freedom and for justice and for choice, all these great sounding words and phrases and ideas, because that's after all the marketing and the branding of the abortion movement in this country and beyond. Choice, freedom, empowerment, liberation. Well, she said, well, she thought she was advocating for these things. She was really advocating for the killing of millions of tiny little women in the womb across the world every year, and the killing of tiny little men, and the turning of women against their own flesh and blood. We know, and one of the reasons we're here tonight is because we know abortion doesn't liberate, abortion doesn't empower. We know that women don't walk into an abortion facility feeling powerful. Women walk into abortion facilities feeling powerless. That's why they're there. That's why it's so crucial that there is someone else offering to help, that there's another path, that there's hope for them, somewhere else to go. Fast forward or rewind years before that encounter I had with the board member of Planned Parenthood, and I asked her, do you want to stay in touch? And she didn't really want to stay in touch. She kind of left in a huff, but we had a good conversation, and I still pray for her. And I pray for the many others like her who are working in the abortion movement, who are supporting the abortion movement in this country and beyond, and pray that one day they'll see the truth of what they're really involved in, and that they can be cut to the heart by it, but that encounter with the truth can then set them free like it has done for others like Abby Johnson, a former Planned Parenthood director and now a pro-life advocate, and many, many others, and to set them free to join our side, which after all is the side of love, is the side of life, and because it's the side of God, is the winning side. This beautiful cause that we all get to support. I had my first encounter with abortion when I was 9 years old. And I'm from San Jose, California. I'm one of 8 kids, so that should tell you something. Big pro-life family. And my parents weren't really pro-life activists, but they were Christians, they were pro-life. They mentioned it a few times. I remember at the dinner table, growing up, I would hear about Bill Clinton and the partial birth abortion ban and these words, and it was like he was this, scary monster in the closet who's come and get us. Trying to clear where my parents were politically, but it was because they were very adamant about life, even though they weren't necessarily praying outside the abortion facility, but they were very pro-life. They had 8 kids. And I had heard the word abortion, but I didn't really know what it meant. Until one day I had an encounter at about 9 years old. And I was looking for a book to read in my living room, and by the way, we were all homeschooled. Any homeschoolers out there? All right, maybe not. Okay, thanks for clapping though. I see one in the back, good. Anybody who homeschools, I can only express admiration. My parents, I can't believe how they did it, but I'm very grateful. And also a lot of time to just explore and try other things, and that's one of the reasons I was able to do and start live action as a teen. But I'm 9 years old, I'm looking for a book to read. On the bottom shelf in our living room, I find a book called A Handbook on Abortion by Dr. and Mrs. Wilkie. I pull it out from the shelf, and it's kind of tattered looking, and there's a very serious looking woman on the cover with kind of an 80s haircut and kind of 80s glasses. And I remember thinking, wow, this must be like a really old book. This is like maybe a history book, I wonder what's in here. So I pull it open, and it falls to the center, and I'm looking, and in shock, I close the book and I push it away. I don't want to keep looking at what I'm looking at. And then gathering up a little bit of 9-year-old courage, I draw the book back and I open it up and I look again. And what I'm looking at is the image of a child, maybe 10 weeks old, with newly forming arms and legs and a tiny newly formed little face, 10 weeks old, first trimester, who had been torn apart by a first trimester suction abortion. And looking at this little image of this little child, my heart was just touched, and I was so grieved. And I thought, is this real? Is this really happening? I couldn't understand. I went and found my mom, and I showed it to her, and I said, is this real? Is this really happening? And she closed the book, and she said, yes, that's abortion. After seeing that image, of course, I wanted to learn more. I wanted to understand, how much is it happening? Where is it happening? Why is it happening? I started to read the book. I started to ask questions. I discovered that there are over 3,000 abortions happening every day in our country. Over 1 million abortions every year. I learned that since 1973, before I was even born, Supreme Court justices, these men in black robes, had made this decision, and somehow this was a constitutional right to be practiced in our country. And I learned that within 10 miles of my childhood home, and tonight within 3 miles of this beautiful banquet hall where we're enjoying our evening together, there was a Planned Parenthood abortion facility open for business, killing up to 30 children a day on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, almost 100 children a week. And as I learned these things, I realized that even though I was safe and I had been protected and I was alive, there were children out there who were not safe, who were not protected. Getting into my teen years, I struggled with, okay, what is my life for? I want to give my life for something greater. I think we all are here tonight also because we want to give our life for something greater than ourselves. We discover our true selves through loving others and through trying to discern and follow God and Christ if we are Christians. And I wanted to say, what was my purpose? What can I do? How can I be used? And I was studying, I was learning. You flip on the TV, you open a magazine, you open now social media, and there's always a cause, there's always a news issue, there's always a great controversy, there's always a crisis. There's an economic crisis, there's an election that's on the country's on the brink, there's questions of our security as a country, terrorism, there's an AIDS crisis, there's poverty, there's homelessness, there's so many issues. But I kept coming back to the image of that child in my early teens. The image of that child in the first trimester the reality of what abortion does to that child. I came across the writings of Blessed Mother Teresa of Calcutta. And in her writings, I came across this one phrase that forever has stayed in my mind. And it was a phrase that she said in a speech, in an address, to a whole group of very powerful US politicians at a national prayer breakfast in the 90s, and many of them were pro-abortion politicians. And this little nun came from her work in India, work with the lepers, work with the dying, work with the lonely, and she had very strong words to say about abortion to America, to the powerful, to the wealthy. And she looked at them, and she's this Nobel Peace Prize winner. She's this little tiny nun in a blue and white sari. She looks at the group and she says in her quiet, strong voice, "The greatest destroyer of peace in the world today is abortion." And then she said it again, "The greatest destroyer of peace in the world today is abortion." And then she went on to say, "In a nation where a mother can kill her own child, what is left but for you and for I to kill one another?" Reading that as a teen, I thought, this is the cause. This is the greatest human rights issue of our day, because the first human right is life, and without life, we can't enjoy any other right. And the greatest human rights abuses are perpetrated against those who are powerless. And who's the most powerless? The child in the womb who can't even speak. The vocal cords aren't even developed yet. But also peace, peace. Our country is hungry. Our world is hungry for peace. We want peace in our hearts, peace in our homes, peace in our parishes, peace in our cities, peace in our world. But how can we have peace if we tolerate the killing of the littlest one? How can we have peace if we allow those abortion facilities in our neighborhoods, in our communities, near to our schools, near to our churches? We cannot have peace if we allow it. As a teen starting Live Action, it was really one foot in front of the other, one step at a time, getting other young people together. Social media was just starting to get invented when I got to college, and we wanted to just educate. If people just knew the truth, they could change. If people just had an encounter with the beauty of life and with the horror of abortion, there could be a change. If the lies were stripped away. And quickly at UCLA, I realized that there are so many lies being repeatedly told, so many lies in the media, in academia, in politics, lies about the value of life in the womb, but lies about women. Lies about family, lies about love, lies about what power is and what freedom is. And I quickly learned that students were just being inundated with these lies. And one of the greatest purveyor of the lies and the lies about it was Planned Parenthood, the biggest abortion chain in this country. $1 billion organization, receiving over $500 million every year from guess who? Courtesy of this room tonight, courtesy of taxpayers, over $500 million a year. I learned that they commit almost a third of abortions in this country, over 320,000 abortions. And that not only that, they are the biggest advocate nationally and internationally with their affiliates and their associated organizations for abortion on demand and without apology, which is one of the taglines for their more hardline activists. But they do it in the name of choice, and they do it in the name of empowering to women, empowerment to women. And I thought, how can we expose these lies? How can we get the truth out there? And this inspired our foray into investigative journalism, and later on into news reporting, and later on to building the platforms we have now that are reaching millions of people a week with the truth about life, the truth about abortion, the truth about human dignity, the truth about women, the truth about children, inspiring and convicting, exposing the truth about what happens. My first investigation, I'll never forget, I was 18 at the time, and since then we've been across the country and even the world, and have been doing investigative work now and expanded it through many different areas. But the first investigation, it was myself with a camcorder and a voice recorder. I walked into a Planned Parenthood 4 miles from my college dorm in Los Angeles. And I had done a lot of research. I had been writing for the Daily Bruin, the campus paper. I wanted to start my own paper, Live Action's own paper, so that we could get the truth out without having the Daily Bruin censor us. They didn't really want to run pro-life op-eds all the time. Surprise, surprise. And so I thought, well, maybe we should just become the media and have our own publication. But I wanted to see what the Planned Parenthood would say to me if I posed as a young girl who was pregnant, who was the victim of sexual abuse. Because I had done a lot of research, and I quickly discovered that in the practice of abortion, you're not going to find virtue. In the practice of abortion, you're not going to find the elevation of women or the good treatment and care. You're not going to find even professionalism. You're not going to find law abiding. You're going to find abuse after abuse. And one of the abuses that I learned about through the stories and anecdotes of personal testimonies, through the work of groups like Mark Crutcher of Life Dynamics, that sexual abuse cover-up is rampant at abortion facilities. It's one other aspect of the many abuses. You've learned lately about baby parts trafficking. We heard about Kermit Gosnell and the horrible medical conditions. There's a lot of different abuses, but one of them is the cover-up of child sexual abuse, failure to report statutory rape. So one Los Angeles sunny day, I walked to this Planned Parenthood in Santa Monica, a beautiful shopping area, and I was going to go in and I was going to ask them to help me, posing as a girl 15 years old who thought she might be pregnant. I was very nervous. It was my first investigation. I'd never been inside an abortion facility before. I'd prayed outside of abortion facilities. And I got off the elevator, and I'm looking into the room. There are these glass doors, and there's all these women sitting in this small, kind of cramped waiting room. And I remember just stopping and just looking at the women for a moment. My heart was beating rapidly. You could hear actually on the voice recorder in my blouse my heartbeat, like a soundtrack to the whole investigation, because I was so nervous, but I channeled the nervousness. And I look into this waiting room, and there are all these women. And I remember thinking, none of them looked very happy. One of them looked like she was about to cry. There's a TV blaring. And I remember thinking that as I looked at these women, for many of them, I wasn't just looking at one life, but I was looking at two lives. And in that facility, on that day, the cycle of death for medical abortion or the appointment of death for the surgical facility downtown would be started. And one of those lives would be slated to be killed. And on the wall of the facility, it said the word esperanza, or hope in Spanish. Again, the marketing at Planned Parenthood, reach out to Spanish-speaking clients, put the word hope on the wall. And I thought, this must be the most hopeless place in Santa Monica. I walked in, they buzzed me in, I walked up to the check-in counter, I said, can I talk to somebody? And the Planned Parenthood worker said, yeah, what's going on? And I said, well, you know, I'm 15 and, you know, I think I'm pregnant. Oh, she said, she kind of got the message. This is kind of maybe shady, and there are other ladies in the waiting room, so she took me behind that check-in counter. She said, okay, what's really going on? And I said, well, I'm pregnant, you know, and I'm 15, and, you know, he's a lot older. You know, he's 23. What should I do? And she kind of laughed, and immediately that should have triggered the mandatory statutory rape reporting law in California, because she's a medical professional. That's what they call themselves. That's what they're held accountable to by any law in many states, same laws. But instead, the Planned Parenthood worker kind of laughed, and she said, okay. She said, well, just figure out a birth date that works. She told me to lie about my age, say that I was older than I really was, to put down a fake age on the paperwork, and they could get me a quick and secret abortion, no questions asked. My first encounter, and no discussion of options or other support, they could make the problem go away. After that encounter, I walked out of the abortion facility, and my heart was just sinking, and I thought, how many young girls are actually going into abortion facilities with stories of what kind of abuse? Sometimes it's abuse in their own families, abuse from a teacher, abuse from an authority figure, or sometimes it's situations outside of a good family's control because they're not even aware, and that abortion facility is just giving secret abortions away. That same day, I went to another abortion facility, ended up sitting with the manager, and what she told me in her counseling session with me is a line we would hear in abortion facilities across the country. So this is one of the standard forms of counseling, options counseling they call it, and by the way, tax-funded pregnancy counseling at Planned Parenthood. And she sat me down, the manager in this bigger facility in LA. I'm still posing as a 15-year-old, much older boyfriend, pregnant, and this was the line she gave me. She said, you know what, honey, when I was your age, I got pregnant too. I was 17 and I got pregnant. And I said, really? And she said, yeah, and it was really hard and everything, but you know, I was still in school, but you know what? She said, I had my baby. And I remember thinking, wow, this is a great, she's, you know, is she undercover, you know, doing pro-life counseling at Planned Parenthood, and I'm undercover, an activist pretending I'm pregnant, and who's gonna tell the next person first, who's who, and I was floored. I said, you had your baby? You know, almost too excited probably. I said, you had your baby? And she said, yes, but if I could do it again, I would do it very differently. If I could do it again, I would not continue that pregnancy. And you know, my son, he's 16 now, but you know, kids cost a lot. The economy is not doing too well. And you know, it took me longer to finish school. She was telling me, besides not reporting the sexual abuse, besides not helping me in any other way, telling me why I should get an abortion because she wished so badly that she could go back in time and get one herself, of the son that was now 16. The reason I share that is because the counseling that's happening at Women's Help Center is the exact opposite. It's truth where there were lies at the abortion facility. It's hope where there's hopelessness at the abortion facility. It's life where there's only death at the abortion facility. That's the option at the abortion facility. I want to share a quick video with you with sampling, because I think it's so important that we as pro-life advocates, as activists, as volunteers, as supporters, as people of prayer and people of faith, that we give ourselves that encounter with the evil. We know what the culture of death is doing. We understand what's happening around us in our country. We know what abortionists are telling women, the lies they're telling in facilities. We are equipped with that knowledge so we can share it, so that we can be brave in expressing it and sharing it across, with maybe just on social media, with our schools, with our parishes, with family, with friends, and we can point people to a better path. But this video is of brave undercover moms. So these are 3 different women. You'll hear their voices. You're not going to see them. They're pregnant. All of them are in the late 2nd or early 3rd trimester. And they're having conversations with late-term abortionists, some of America's most notorious late-term abortionists, about the abortion procedure. You're going to hear America's legally operating late-term abortionists and how they're talking with women who they think may be clients. We can play the video now.
Well, in my heart and my mind, you know, life begins when the mother thinks it begins, not when anybody else thinks it begins. For some women, it's before they conceive. For some women, it's never. Even after they deliver, it's still a problem, not a baby.
At this point, does it have like all of its organs and all of that stuff? Like, is it already fully
It's not fully developed.
Okay.
It doesn't even look like, it doesn't even look like a baby yet.
It doesn't?
Technically, it has its organs, it has parts, like we all have parts, but it's not done.
So, like, does it have a face or like all of that stuff? Or?
Yeah, kind of,
okay.
yeah. I mean, that's what's developing into.
Right, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want you to torture yourself.
Really?
Cannot do a termination once it's outside of the body. Okay, he has to resuscitate it and he has to send it to the hospital. That's the law.
Okay.
But that's why a termination is done inside. He does a termination inside and then he removes the pregnancy.
So normally he just kills it inside, so that wouldn't be.
Well,
okay.
we don't use the word kill, but
oh,
yeah,
okay, or terminate.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you guys say terminate. Mm-hmm. Okay, just to make it like.
No, just because that's what's happening.
Yeah, we induce a demise, an intrauterine demise.
What does demise mean?
Death. We use a combination of suction and then real instruments to literally go in and grab and pull pieces out.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe that's a little more graphic than I usually describe it.
So I'll have a dead baby in me?
For 3 days, yeah.
Will it start to decay or something?
No,
Oh.
So it's like putting meat in a crock pot, okay? It doesn't get broke, but it gets softer. It doesn't get infected or.
Okay.
You know.
So the dead baby in me is like
It's
meat in a crock pot.
Pretty, yeah, kind of much.
All right. All right.
A slow cooker.
To insert the injection, it's going straight into the sac and to the pregnancy. Okay, it's bottom down. It'll insert through the baby's bottom. Okay.
Okay,
if
so
it's the head down, it'll be inserted through the head, through the cranium. And then it's just, I mean,
like any shot, like a flu shot or a vaccine, really.
Just like a flu shot or vaccine, okay.
Yeah, and it's not like you and I, where when we get a flu shot, we're kind of, ooh, not that experience of anxiety and suffering it's not capable of. Okay. And so that, I think, helps us all to feel more comfortable with this.
I think sometimes in the work to fight for life, end abortion in America, overcome the great evil, it can weigh very heavy. And I'm sure the staff and the volunteers at the Women Help Center feel that often. And the supporters, the board, understand that feeling. And my team, I know, feels that frequently. We feel that, I feel that. But I think in those moments where you experience that, those are the moments where we can meditate on what we're fighting for and whom we're fighting for, who this is really all about. St. Augustine says that people travel the world to marvel at the mountains, the height of the mountains, at the circular motion of the stars, at the great oceans. But he says that people pass by themselves without wondering. He's saying, of course, how wonderful is the human person, how amazing is the human person, the greatest of all of God's creation, the human person made in the image and likeness of God himself. How beautiful is one human person. So precious in God's eyes that God would send his son, Jesus Christ, for that one person, for the salvation of that one person. And isn't that why we're all here tonight? Because we have an opportunity to help save even just one life. But wouldn't, if all of our life's work, all of our fortune helped to save one life, wouldn't it all be worth it? Wouldn't it all be more than worth it if we can be a part of helping save one life? What a great and beautiful thing to get to unite in what I believe is God's salvific plan for this entire world, for this country and for this world. I don't think God intends for this country to go down the dust heap of history. I do meet some grumpy, good people, Christians, Catholics, who say, it's getting really bad out there. And it is getting really bad out there. Every day we're working. We just released a press statement today about a presidential candidate, unfortunately from the pro-life GOP, you might guess who it was, saying that we should expand the definition of, or we should shrink the definition of pro-life so that children conceived in rape and incest shouldn't be protected by law. Change the GOP platform. So we're releasing a statement and doing media interviews on that, and every day there's some new challenge to stand up for life and to fight for life. And the war is very thick. The war is very heavy. St. Paul says that in Ephesians that we don't battle against flesh and blood, but we battle against powers and principalities, so that there is a great war that we're in. But I believe with my whole heart that because of the work being done in communities like Women's Help Center, because of the love that it is being done with and the prayer that infuses it, and that prayer is everything. And that's the first thing I want to leave you with is prayer. Pray for an end to abortion. Pray for the country, that the country will be taken out of the downward spiral and brought more towards a culture of life. Satan has a plan for this country, but God has a plan for this country. Let's believe in God's vision for the country. I think people say, well, it needs to get worse so that we can feel how bad it is and then we'll repent. It's pretty bad already. We're losing over 3,000 children a day right now to abortion. I believe that if we pray and if we repent and if we work, if we support ministries like this, if we go all in, that we can be that light, that sweetness that God can work incredible miracles through, right where we are, right in our own homes, our families, our parishes. Maybe God will take you on a great adventure. I remember as a teen, and I prayed for the first time, use me. Use me to do something about abortion. I was 13 years old. I said, use me to do something about abortion. Use me to save some lives. And I would have never dreamed at 13 the adventure that I have been on and I continue to be on. But that's because God has greater dreams for each of us when we offer ourselves to be part of his plan for the salvation of souls, his plan for this nation. He has greater plans and dreams for us than we could have ever had for ourselves. And that's the beautiful secret that I want to leave you with tonight, which is that in the work for the culture of life, in the work to end abortion, in the work praying outside the facility, the abortion facility, in the work at Women's Help Center, yes, we are saving lives. Saving one life would be more than worth it, but they're saving hundreds of lives. How amazing. Last month, I think they said 5 lives. How amazing. What a great thing to celebrate. But that in that work, we are also experiencing the beauty and the joy and the peace that before we might not have even had been able to experience because we are offering ourselves to be a part of God's will. And we discover more deeply the joy and the beauty and the blessing of our own lives by offering ourselves to change this country, to change Jacksonville, to build a culture of life. Thank you all so much tonight, and thank you so much to the Women's Help Center. Open those checkbooks, please, to support this beautiful work, and God bless you all. Thank you very much.